Today we'll look at a new feature in Excel 2013 called Flash Fill. Flash Fill is a very cool new feature that lets you fill in patterns of data very easily in spreadsheets. In fact, I think you'll find that you can do things with Flash Fill that you used to do with more complicated formulas in previous versions of Excel. Things like concatenating text or putting text together from two different columns into one column, or extracting text from one column into another column, or even inserting text in multiple cells. While Flash Fill is a very interesting new feature, it does have some limitations. It works more consistently with text than it does with numbers or dates, and that's primarily because Flash Fill treats numbers as text. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. Also, if you generate text with Flash Fill, it will not update the same way cells update when you use formulas, and we'll look at some examples of that also. This spreadsheet contains the names of 6 former presidents. In column A I have the last name, in column B the middle name, and in column C the first name. What I'd like to do is concatenate them, that is, put them together in column D so that they appear as first name, middle initial, and last name. I'm going to use Flash Fill to do that, and I'm going to start by typing the pattern I want in the first cell. Then I'll press Control Enter so that I get out of edit mode but yet remain in the cell. One way to use Flash Fill is to go up to the Home tab and then use the Fill menu in the Editing group and select Flash Fill. Notice it repeats the pattern and concatenates all the names on the list. Let me show you 2 other ways to use Flash Fill. Let's go over to column E where we'd like the initials. Again, I'll start by typing the pattern I want, pressing Control Enter to stay in the cell but not be in edit mode, and then I'll use my autofill symbol to copy the initials down to row 7. Notice that at first it just copies the initials from E2. I'm going to use the Smart tag to select Flash Fill and then copy the pattern down so that I have the initials in the other rows. Let's use Flash Fill one more way. In column F, I would like for the last name of the president to appear, followed by a comma and then a space and then the first name. So again, I'll start by typing the pattern. Press Control Enter to stay in the cell, and then use the Flash Fill shortcut Control E. Again, it fills in the pattern I want. Let's try that one more time. This time we'll use first name, then a space, no middle initial, and then last name. And then again the shortcut Control Enter to stay in the cell, and Control E to fill in the patterns. I think you can see what a useful feature Flash Fill is and how it might save you time in doing your work. But I think it's important to be aware of one limitation it has. When you fill in data using Flash Fill, you're not actually using formulas, so you will not be able to update the data later. Let's take a look at concatenating text using a function that does update, just so we can see the difference. This is the same spreadsheet set up the same way as last, middle, and first name. Notice in D2 I've used the concatenate function. Concatenate is the key word, and then in parentheses I have the cells that I want to concatenate. So first I want C2, the first name, followed by a space, then B2, the middle initial, then another space, and then the last name. I'll press Enter, and then I'll use the autofill symbol to copy it down to row 8. And as you can see, it copied down the pattern the same way that Flash Fill did, except behind the scenes in each one of these cells is actually a formula. Let's go ahead and change one of these cells and see what happens. Let's say I wanted to put in Lyndon Johnson's real first name instead of his middle initial, which is Baines, so I'll go ahead and type that in B6 and then press Enter. Notice that D6 updates to include the full middle name. Let's go back to the spreadsheet where we used Flash Fill and try to do the same thing. Notice when I press Enter in B6, D6 is unchanged. Again, if we look up at the formula bar, that's because we don't have a formula there, we just have text. This is one of the limitations of Flash Fill. But even with these limitations, the Flash Fill feature has many practical uses. Let's take a look at a few more. On this spreadsheet I have 4 email addresses, and I need to extract the first and last name from each address. I'm going to start by clicking into B2 and typing the first name. Then I'll press Control Enter to stay in the cell, Control E to fill in the rest of the first names. I'll do the same thing in the last name column. Control Enter to stay in the cell, Control E to repeat the pattern. Next, let's take a look at how you can use Flash Fill to insert text into a spreadsheet. In this spreadsheet I have 5 phone numbers. What I'd like to do is add the word phone followed by a colon and then also put the area code in parentheses. Let's see if we can use Flash Fill to do that. Control Enter will leave me in the cell. Control E will use to fill in the pattern. Let's take a look at one more spreadsheet to see how Flash Fill deals with dates. In column A, I have a series of dates in the standard date format, month, day, and year. What I'd like to do is extract the year, the day, and the month into separate columns, and I'd also like to repeat the date in the international format in column E. Let's start by extracting the year. I'll start by typing the year in the first cell, B2. Control Enter will keep me in the cell. Control E will fill in the pattern. Do the same with the day, which in C2 is 3. Press Enter and then Control E to repeat the pattern. Let's do the same with the month. 11 in D2. Control Enter to stay in the cell. Control E to repeat the pattern. So far so good. Unfortunately, converting the standard date pattern to the international pattern in column E will be a little more difficult. Let's start by typing the new pattern we want. I'll start with the year, then a dash, then a 2-digit month, then another dash, and then a 2-digit day. Notice when I hit Enter, Excel automatically converts the date to the standard pattern. So if I use Flash Fill now, it's just going to repeat what's in column A. Let's go up and delete what's in column E. In fact, let's clear all the formatting. Let's try it a different way. This time I'm going to type it in as text, and I'm going to start with a leading apostrophe so that Excel knows I want text here. Let's try the year, followed by a dash, followed by the month, followed by another dash, followed by a 2-digit day. I'm going to press Control Enter to stay in the cell and Control E to copy the pattern down. Excel almost gets it, but take a look at column E4. Since I typed a 0 into the 2-digit day, it thought I wanted a 0 in all the days. Again, this is a problem that Excel runs into with Flash Fill because it treats these dates as text. Let's try it a slightly different way to see if we can get the right pattern. I'm going to delete E2 to E9, and we'll start with an apostrophe again to indicate text, but I'm going to try a slightly different pattern. I'll start with the year and then the month, and then this time I'm only going to type 1 digit for the day since there is only 1 digit in the day in A2. Let's do Control Enter to stay in the cell, Control E to repeat the pattern. Notice this time Excel gets it right. Again, I had to do 2 things in order to make sure that it repeated the correct pattern. One, I had to make sure that the date was formatted as text, and 2, I had to repeat the pattern in column A as closely as possible. Even though Flash Fill does have some limitations in dealing with numbers and dates, I think you'll find that it's a very useful new feature in Excel 2013.